the old
Full
folks.
price, everybody.
What is it?
Right.
Called up the previous people.
No.
No, just gave it full control.
Basically put them in the administrator group.
Yeah.
Wow.
So after about 2 years, out of 6,000 users, how many administrators did I have on that system?
Sounds like
5,998.
Almost. It was about half. Half the users were administrators.
Yeah.
Sound like a problem? Sound like a career limiting event?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that was accidental, right? Just through, hey, I don't know any better. And these are guys that went to security awareness training, so I'd like to think that they did know better. And of course, you know, they were certified people. So I'm a big fan of you get what you pay for. You want to save money? Go ahead. Then you just created more problems for yourself, which is going to take you twice as long, and now you got to deal with more problems. So did it really save you the money? Might as well pay the people to do it right the first time.
Maybe not, or maybe not.
I am a big fan of those exact words. You're going to pay for it now or later. The choice is yours, but I promise you it's cheaper now. Right? You go to an attorney, and you want to get an attorney to do some copywriting trademark, and you want to pay an attorney to do a will or something, pennies on the dollar. All of a sudden, now you're in a murder case and you need defense, millions of dollars. You're going to pay for one, but it's always more expensive later. And so you can use that with your risk analysis and trying to leverage the things that you work on. You can pay for it now, you can pay for it later. But it's going to be more expensive later, though. Always is. All right, well, does it make sense to do default set to no access?
Yeah.
This is called an implicit deny. Also, could you control access off of a need to know? Very similar to no access. So if you have a top secret clearance, can you access all top secret documents?
Nope.
Why not?
Yeah. Need to know.
You don't have the need to know. So you got to make sure that you have the necessary clearance and the need to know. All right, this is a particularly interesting. This is object reuse. And let's say that I take a hard drive out of a top secret environment and I reuse it in a unclassified environment. You have to worry about object reuse, or that object being reused, and there be residual data on that hard drive. And if I were let's say I just deleted the files and then take it from top secret to secret, or top secret to unclassified. Forensically, I could go in, once I have control of that drive, forensically I can go in and get most of the files off that hard drive. And so now that hard drive just became a covert storage channel. Would you agree or disagree?
Yes.
And they're pretty strict on what you can take out of a top secret environment and where you put it. And the rule of thumb is nothing goes out without being destroyed or degaussed.
But it happened.
But it happens, yeah. People are still people. Remember, you got people, processes, and technology, and two of them can be fixed. Meaning people can. So there's ways to deal with object reuse. You can actually destroy the removable media. There could be a process where an application deletes the residual data in memory. Or you could just do something called wiping the drive, or zeroization, where you just write zeros to the drive. So there's a couple of different ways. Or never use it again, reuse it. Reject object reuse. I'll tell you a scenario where this, it's kind of a hybrid example here, but I worked for a company and we donated a bunch of computers to charity. So hey, brave souls, good for the company, congratulations. About 6 months later, I get one of these. FBI is knocking on the door. Mr. Drager, I'd like to talk to you for a second. I don't know what about this scenario, but whenever the FBI comes knocking on your door, there's always the element, especially being in computer security and teaching hacking and all this other stuff, there's the element of, uh-oh, what did I do? You know, that white feeling, the electricity feeling when the FBI is knocking on your door. Something about it just goes right through you. And they said, well, we need to talk to you about some stuff. And, did you donate these computers to this, company, if you will? And we did. The problem is there was a disconnect between the actual people that collected the computers and the security folks, because we told them to sanitize the stuff. Right? Sanitize it. You guys know you can't just give out anything. You got to sanitize the stuff. Yeah, right. So they brought out the Lysol, cleaned it all off, and basically gave it away. So our asset tags, the data on the hard drive, all that stuff, it was so lazy. It was, the folks that really handled it were very lazy in that sense. And so when the computers were actually used, they were resold to another company, which was doing this basically big fraud scam where they were basically forging their profits on their books. And so the IRS was on to them, this, that, and the other, and they were using their profits to get more loans, which they would now claim as profits, and then go get more loans. So go Ponzi on it, or however you want to add it up. It was bad stuff. But many people were onto them. I only found this out, I didn't put two and two together because the FBI doesn't really tell you anything. They just ask you a bunch of questions.
Right.
And, what was your role in this? Yeah, we donated the computers, here's our receipt, and all that other stuff. Okay, thank you very much. No big deal when the FBI was there. About 6 months later, it's like 2 years later, I was watching TV, and I watched a lot of forensics TV and this, that, and the other, and I had just gotten out of the shower, and I was kind of listening to it, and I was like, it sounds familiar. And it got a little bit more into the program as I'm getting dressed. Oh, that sounds really familiar. And then to come to find out, that's the exact scenario that the FBI came knocking on my door. I saw the episode on TV on one of the forensics channels.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe it. And that's the only reason I know about the company and the fraud and all that other stuff. But there was a lot of people onto them. And they were doing bad
Sounds
stuff.
like the copiers, the hard driving copiers.
What about them?
They did a special about them, how the information gets out. And they had police copiers in the warehouse selling them, but they went through the hard drives and found all these records, medical records,
Your
police
fax
records.
rolls contain residual
Yeah.
data, hard drives, copiers. Now I still don't know about the, if you photocopy it, the dollar bill, does it call the IRS? I don't know. I don't know about that one, but there could be residual stuff on there. Is the moral of the story. Would you like some easy points in your practice exam?
Yes.
All right. EMSEC. EMSEC. Write that down. That's basically emanation security.
EMSS.
Tempest and EMSEC and control zones. You can write control zones here, or zones by shorthand notation. Control zone. These are all going in this.
EM what? What's the acronym?
EMSEC, emanation security, just abbreviated. EMSEC. So EMSEC, Tempest, or control zones are all in the same conversation. And in this case, what we're trying to do is control access to the electromagnetical frequencies, or radio, EMI and RFI basically, radio frequency or electromagnetical frequencies. So if you've ever been into an area of the network where you have to check your cell phone, what you're doing is you're checking in that cell phone so that when you go into the control zone, you're not bringing any electrical signals in, or you're not taking any, more importantly, you're not taking any electrical signals out. Because they'll actually radiate between the two, and you can get small disturbances on your cell phone. And in many cases, the intrusion detection that they use for those systems, they literally could come up to you and be like, "Sir, I need you to take the cell phone out of your right pocket." Because, if you think about like electromagnetical field, you'd have like a big glowing red spot on your right side versus your left side.
We used to have this like
Picture,
detector device inside the area. You had to go in, sign in or whatever, and if you had a cell phone, it would go off.
Yeah, basically like a metal detector, sort of. Yeah. What are you gonna add, sir?
Need to fix your second bullet under emanation security.
Tell us.
And what do I need to fix?
I guess that was right. Okay.
Well, what did you think I needed
writing
to...
it. I was misreading it.
Well, I misread all the time, so it could have been it could have been completely jacked and I wouldn't know. But there's nothing wrong with it?
No, you're okay.
Okay. You're just messing with me then?
No, I was just I was reading it and reading can from a database, and then it's like, and it's can.
You ever try to read backwards? You read too fast and you get to this word and you're like, well, I'll just back up a word. And then well, that doesn't make sense. So you back up another word, and then another word, and then another word. And then you realize you're reading backwards and it still doesn't make sense. And then you got to reset and just read the whole thing over again.
No, I've never done that.
Yeah.
I don't know what the heck you're talking about.
I'd recommend that you check yourself into a clinic. All right, so Tempest. Tempest. Standard that is used to prevent eavesdropping and radiation from transmissions. So what you do here, circle this, you implement shielding. So you can think about it like this. Let's just line the room with lead and copper. That way no signals can come in and no signals can come out. I actually got to work with one of the head guys at the UN with this for a little bit. And we had a pretty interesting conversation, to say the least, with Temple and Tempest, and how they actually implement the control zones and how much testing actually goes into to be able to detect the emanation of spurious signals. You should write that down. The emanation of spurious signals. If you see spurious signals, then we're talking about Tempest and MSEC. Spurious signals.
So you talked about rooms as rooms and equipment. I mean, shielding is just one way to stop the...
Yeah, whether it be the cabling, it adds a barrier, so it's that same concept, but let's just do it to a whole room.
Right.
And they even sell products now, so if you just take that concept of shielding, they have Wi-Fi paint. You ever heard of that? The Wi-Fi resistant paint, you've heard of it? Yeah. And basically you paint your room with this Wi-Fi paint and it prevents all the Wi-Fi stuff from being able to leak out of your apartment building or whatever you're trying to do. That's kind of like your Boy Scout way of doing it.
Why don't you just secure Wi-Fi?
Well, Wi-Fi can go anywhere, so I guess if you're using special paint to mirror the signals back in, it keeps it in the room.
It's more or less like an RF signal.
Yeah,
You're
it's like
preventing it go
RF
out.
resistant paint.
Okay.
One of the problems that comes in with Tempest is if the shields aren't properly grounded, then
Sure.
Yeah.
it becomes another radio.
Yeah, you ever see Mythbusters? They built I got a kick out of this. Mythbusters actually built a Faraday cage because they were testing cell phones and do they interfere with planes and stuff like that. And so they actually had to build a Faraday cage to prove that, which is nice because any day Mythbusters does a Faraday cage, I get excited. This will provide for acceptable levels of radiations that are considered safe. So due to complexity, cost, and management issues, Tempest is only found on the highest secure systems out there. Then you got white noise, potential countermeasure. So you ever see the movie White Noise? Right? And all that white noise, all the static.
Yep.
Right. So you see this type of stuff in the movies all the time, right? So I think that the government's out to get me, and I think my house is bugged. So I turn up the radio real loud, and then I grab my wife and I whisper to her in her ear. The radio in the background is acting as white noise, or an additional noise added to a system, so that you can figure out the real noise. You could also use jammers for that. You guys familiar with the whole jamming concept?
Yeah.
So let's do one real quick. You've got eBay. Let's do a cell phone jammer. You can get a cell phone jammer here for $50. This also will disconnect signals. So if you're driving down the road and you're tired of people talking on the phone, bam, cell phone jammer.
What's its range?
You also can do train horn. That also works as a cell phone jammer. And the reason you might not like this one,
Countermeasure for texting behind the wheel.
you might like this one because improper use may cause injury and/or death. It says so on the warning label.
You've obviously been looking for some of these.
Scares me.
Oh yeah.
150 dB.
Oh yeah, I mean there's nothing. You can go to YouTube and you can search for horn blasters, and it's actually pretty funny. People go around, they basically go to a public area and they hit the train horn. You watch everybody jump for it. So.
You have way too much free time.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
That's fun.
I teach hacking, certified ethical hackers, and the like. So, white noise, right? It's a countermeasure. It adds something to the environment. So here's your control zone. In this case, it's an office. So you may think of like the colonel at his home. He might have a safe area in his home, and it's a control zone basically. So access control monitoring, process of keeping track of who's attempting to access what information. You can do this with, right, circle these, intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems, honeypots, network sniffers, and audit logs.
most common one is audit logs.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, anybody can do auditing, but definitely honeypots or IDSs are going to be more on the expensive side of this. And anybody can really do network sniffing too, although that's more of an advanced concept. So I'd say the basic is audit logs, and then you want to get a little bit more advanced, you can just sniff traffic. And then you really want to get really advanced in that, a lot of cost to it. You got intrusion detection, prevention, and then of course the honeypots were even more specialized. Next, you've got intrusion detection systems right here. So what do? Basically detect, well, there's two types. We've got physical intrusion detection and technical intrusion detection. So in this case, we're talking about audit logs and everything else, so these would have to be technical. Detective technical controls. So you actually have to watch for the attack, send alert to administrators, identify vulnerabilities perhaps. And there's two major types, and we're going to see these again, but right now you should know that we can do this at a network. We can protect the whole network by adding a network intrusion detection device at a specific point in the network, so maybe between business partners. And then you have host-based. So you can actually have them on the host themselves. Bless you. So you don't need to sneeze now, do you?
Left up a completely perfect sneeze.
And now it's my fault. Now you want to blame it on me.
In this case, would they use system abnormalities from a baseline standard?
Well, there's two types. There's, let's see. All right, well, let's do it now. I'm going to answer your question right now. I'm going to give you the low-hanging fruit. There's two main types. So you guys agree the network and host, that's the first type? Or the first... There's the types of the system, and then there's this decision-making of the system. So you can do it at the network level or the host level. When it comes to the decision-making, you basically can have knowledge-based or behavioral-based. And I'm going to give you something really good here for this. Okay? So let me give you a good one. I call this pass kilobytes. So write this down. PASS KB. And on a network, what you want to do is you want to pass the data along. Data is in the form of kilobytes, size oriented. So let me write these out first. So this would be your profile, anomaly, statistical, signature, knowledge, and behavior. And if you notice here, I've circled the last S and the first K. I've grouped those together because they're very special. So let's isolate those. Signature and knowledge base. These are the types of decision making between these systems. So let's cover these two first. This is the decision making. Basically, when it comes to signature or knowledge base, you have to have the knowledge to write the signature. So if you want to find something bad, you have to know what something bad looks like, write out what something bad is, and then analyze everything that comes across and say, is this bad, is this bad, is this bad, is this bad? But you have to have the knowledge to write that signature. So if we're talking about intrusion detection here, you'd have to have the knowledge to write the signature for that intrusion detection based system. But antivirus is also signature based. You have to know what the bad content is and then write a signature to match that. Signature or knowledge based. And that's different than a profile, anomaly, statistical, or behavior system.
So in that case, the knowledge, the knowledge item, is that the same knowledge, or is that a different knowledge than the knowledge you need to write the signature?
Repeat your question again.
Well, you use knowledge in your definition of signature, right?
You have to have the knowledge to write the signature.
Right.
So I have to know what bad stuff looks like, and then I just do a matching game. Oh, I found bad stuff because they match. Which is completely different than how profile statistical anomaly and behavior works. These are all very similar systems. So this is one, if it's not in the red box, it's outside the red box. That's one type of system versus, and there's basically two types of system here. They have different names for them. So knowledge and signature are really the same thing. You could say it's a knowledge-based
I thought
IDS.
there were two different ones, and I was trying to distinguish between them.
No, they're really the same thing. You have to have the knowledge to write the signatures. Knowledge-based systems or signature-based systems, because you have to have the knowledge to write those signatures. So no matter which one you call them, if you said it was a knowledge-based IDS, it's because you have to have the knowledge to configure the intrusion detection. Versus profile, anomaly, statistical, and behavior, which is different. So with me so far? So let's go into the other ones. So if you have knowledge and behavior-based system, you have to know what the attack looks like. Profile, anomaly, statistical, and behavior are all grouped together too. And so profile is also known as anomaly, statistical, and behavior. So this is where you have an operating system. For example, there's my keypad here and my mouse. And I install a piece of software on here called IDS, whatever it is. And I'm going to put this software in learning mode. And in this learning mode, it's going to build a profile of good behavior. 2 out of 4 already. I'm going to build a profile of good behavior. That way, after I take it out of learning mode and I go into detect mode, I can detect anomalies because it'd be different, or the anomaly would be different because it's not in the profile table or the behavior table. So it's an anomaly. It doesn't have statistical data to support that it being good behavior, so it must be bad behavior. The good part about profile, anomaly, statistical, and behavior is anything outside of what it learned in learning mode is a potential alarm. So new attacks can be detected on profile, anomaly, and statistical and behavior where they can't be in signature versus knowledge-based, because you'd have to know what that attack looks like. And if it's brand new and you don't know about it, you're not going to detect it with a signature or knowledge-based system. But a profile, anomaly, statistical, or behavior system, you will be able to identify that bad behavior because it's outside of what it learned as good behavior. Now the problem of profile, anomaly, and statistic and behavior is if there's bad behavior in learning mode,
It's acceptable.
then now that's acceptable. So you have to really fine-tune that good behavior and make sure that it is in pristine condition. And then you can make exceptions after that. Happy and dandy? Makes sense? This is worth 2 or 3 points right here, so buckle down. Buckle up. Profile, anomaly, statistical, and behavior is one type versus signature and knowledge-based, which is another type. I actually didn't mean to do that yet. Profile, anomaly, statistical, or signature and knowledge. And so the easy way to remember this, whenever you see intrusion detection, you just write it out past kilobytes. Just the easy model to remember this. Because you might get a question, an easy question. Now you'll see how easy this is. Profile intrusion detection systems are also known as or anomaly or statistical. Correct? Yeah. Or signature-based intrusion detections are also known as? Yeah, so now all of a sudden you use past kilobytes as your model, all of a sudden all of those questions become super, super easy. Make sense? So, intrusion detection system, they can be knowledge-based, which uses signatures, also known as pattern matching too, by the way. Behavior systems construct a baseline of what good behavior is, and then any deviations or anomalies, or it doesn't have statistics, or it's not in its profile, or it doesn't recognize that good behavior. That way you can detect new types of attack. But also you get a lot of false alarms because, you know, it's new stuff. So let me give you an example here of the deal. But let's say during learning mode, you receive an email, and then you decide to delete that email and it goes in the recycle bin. And it notices that pattern of good behavior. Now you take it out of learning mode and you go into detect mode, and now you receive an email, and that email tries to go down to your system, start deleting some of your system files to the recycle bin. Obvious difference, right? It would detect that behavior as bad because it didn't learn that. Why would the email do that automatically? The user deleted it. Why is the system doing it now? All right. Then you have intrusion prevention systems. So we go back to our Palto model. We went from detective control to preventative control. And I also want you to write down, these are called active intrusion detection. Kind of a play on words there. Active intrusion detection. So if you think about it, passive intrusion detection is not going to do anything because it's passive, versus active intrusion detection, which will do something. Like change something, because it has the ability to change a firewall, or shun a host, or reset a TCP connection, or call its friend Mr. Antivirus. Because it has the ability to do that, actually do something, it's active intrusion detection or intrusion prevention.
So the previous slide was passive.
Regular IDSs, all of the IDSs in their traditional sense would be a passive IDS. But the minute you just go to IPS, now we're talking about the intrusion prevention or active intrusion detection. It's a play on words, but now you guys are hip to what's going on. So these also intrusion prevention systems can basically work in two configurations as well, the network-based or the host-based. However, you don't really find these intrusion prevention systems in mission-critical environments. You don't want to have the space shuttle being launched and then all of a sudden you can't get to the domain controller because there's a false positive somewhere.
Self-imposed denial.
Yeah, basically. You don't want to be on the operating table and all of a sudden the lights go out because intrusion prevention told everybody to turn out the lights. Next, you got honeypot. And in theory, I want you to circle sacrificial lamb. All right. In theory, in the DMZ, I'm going to put a vulnerable system. I'm going to give you a vulnerable system to play with so that you leave my corporate network alone. So I'm giving you the system to attack rather than letting you attack whatever you feel like attacking. I'm enticing you to attack me, which is different from entrapment. But there's always a fine line there between enticement and entrapment. So in theory, we can, watch what goes on the intrusion detection system, and you can perhaps learn from that information and actually watch an attack happen, things like that. There's a couple different types of commercial honeypots. Symantec has a decoy server. There's also Spectre is another popular one. There's about a good 10 or 15 popular systems. I'd say most of them are on the open source side of life, though. And then you have network sniffers. This is just sniffing a traffic on the network, identifying potential attacks. Well, now's a good time to talk about promiscuous mode. That's different from what happened in the 70s. That was a different type of promiscuous mode. In this case, promiscuous mode, so you got that, somebody got that. So promiscuous mode now basically means read-only. So your network interface card, it will receive traffic, but it'll never send the traffic. So it'll receive, but it will not send.
What are you talking about? You said that your NIC card?
Yeah, the actual network adapter card, yeah. Which there's actually another piece of this that we probably should talk about, because you really can't do network sniffing until you basically talk about WinPCAP, which is a file you need to add to your network adapter card that even it gives you the ability to use your network adapter card as a sniffer. as the detector. So you have to add in a special driver basically on a Windows system. WinPCAP is that file. And that will allow you to do things like, configure your interface cards in promiscuous code, because not all drivers have the ability to do that. So in a Windows system, you have to typically add in those drivers, which in the case of WinPCAP would be installing a little tiny DLL on your hard drive. So you need to know promiscuous mode. You should, not for the sake of this exam, you don't need to know WinPCAP for this exam because it's too technical, but it's a good idea if you ever want to do this stuff in real life, you got to talk about WinPCAP. And here is your detective technical control auditing logs. In the most simplistic form, who, what, when, where, why, and how. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. You have to have enough information in your audit logs to be able to track down who, what, where, when, why, and hopefully how. And proxy servers have really become a pain in the butt here, because when you're doing proxying, you tend to get the source address of the proxy server. So every source address is the